think it's going.
Okay, we'll start with, because our topic today is death contemplation, we're going to do the 5 subjects for frequent recollection as our chant today.
And damayeng abinhang patra we kanapanang banamase. Jara mi jarang anatita. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging.
Page 1.
Piyadi dhamma mi piyading anatita. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. Marana dhamma mi marana anatita. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. Sabehi me piyehi mana pehi mana bhavo vina bhavo. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Kama sakami kama dayada kama yoni kama bandhu kama patisarana yang kamang karisami kalayanang wapapakam Vata sadayada bhavisami. I am the owner of my kama, heir to my kama, born of my kama, related to my kama, abide supported by my kama. Whatever kama I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. Evam amhehi abinhang pachavehitabang. Thus we should frequently recollect.
Okay, so we're doing topics that have been requested, and some of them requested that we give a talk on death contemplation. A few weeks ago, I invited all of us to consider why we're meditating, why we're studying the teachings of the Buddha, because the reasons for that can vary, and they're all valid. And I think what she's asked us to do is pertinent for today, because the reason you do a death contemplation depends on the reason that you're meditating. So there can be different reasons to do a death contemplation. So I consider this, and I sort of figured there were about 3 groups of people. So I'm going to talk about those. And then if you feel you lie outside of that group, there's a 4th group, then I'll invite you to share that so we can be inclusive. So, and I think the reasons that we meditate, they generally progress over time. So usually you'll start with the first group and sort of move into the second group and then move into the third group. But it's not always the case, perhaps because of past life experiences. You might just find yourself immediately in the third group. So I think first of all, the overriding sort of umbrella reason I think all of us are meditating is to be happy, to let go of suffering in our life and to feel happiness. And the Dalai Lama wrote a book about this that he called The Art of Happiness. And so that I'd say that's the overarching sort of umbrella reason. And then if we come down and divide this into three parts, most people start practicing meditation or start listening to the teachings of the Buddha because they're aware of some suffering in their life. It's not always the case, but that's often the case. And in the midst of their suffering, they read something about Buddhism, or they have a friend that tells them about it, and then they give it a try. And so in this group, people are still very interested in getting the majority of their happiness in their life from the sensory world. Going to music concerts, tasting, tasty food, having wonderful relationships, being out in nature, just all the various sensory experiences, all the beautiful things that we can see, visiting different places, sounds, tastes, touches, smells, and also our mind, reading interesting books or having interesting conversations. So in this first group, we're still very interested in seeking happiness from the sensory world. And we're using the teachings of the Buddha to help us let go of our unskillful habit energy so that we're suffering less and can enjoy the sensory world. And then the second group, I'd say in the first group, people don't necessarily have a belief in rebirth. And rebirth is a major concept in Buddhism. It gives one a reason, an additional reason, in addition to just being a kind person, to live a moral life, because if your rebirth is going to depend on how you're living your life, and you don't want to end up in a difficult rebirth situation, then there's a motivation to live a moral life. And so in this group, there's, maybe a little bit more emphasis on just how you're living your life, and maybe starting to experience happiness just from unifying your mind in your meditation practice. And so you're finding out that there's another way to experience happiness than happiness from the sensory world. You're now experiencing happiness just from stilling the mind. And so you're aware that there's an alternative. And then in the third group, this group probably happens for those who have experienced stillness, and then when they come out of stillness, their mind is very clear, and they're able to sort of really see clearly reality. And this is what the Buddha's teachings are all about: is what's reality. And when we, in the first couple of groups, or maybe just sort of taking that on faith or taking it intellectually. But in the third group, you're starting to see that for yourself very clearly. And and you're much more aware of the inherent suffering in life, that even though there are beautiful things in life, the inherent suffering in them is at the end, that they're impermanent. And then, of course, there's all the things that aren't beautiful, the things, the annoying noises, our climate change with all the things that are happening environmentally around us, difficulties in relationship, difficulties at the workplace, on and on and on. And so in this group, there is much more of a motivation to become fully awakened, to then prevent rebirth into this round of samsara. And so if you're in the first group, death contemplation, it's going to be, I think, just to help you have a sort of a more easeful transition out of this life. And the analogy that I think of is somebody who trains to be, to work in an ambulance. And, the first time that you go out to a terrible accident, and body parts are scattered and there's bleeding or, screaming, and just, it's a horrific scene. It's going to be quite traumatic for you the first time. But after you've been out on several calls, because you sort of get used to this, because you see it over and over, and then you're able to not focus on the horror of what's going on. You're able to focus on all the training that you've had, so that you can go in and save lives. You're not freaked out anymore, and you can just focus on reviving or stopping bleeding or helping the people that are still alive to continue living. And so it's the same thing with our death. We don't usually get to practice this. It's just a one-off thing. And I don't know what phone that is. Like, this is sound like one of our phones.
Someone have a phone?
I thought I turned it on.
It's our phone in the kitchen. I think it didn't get turned
Did it
off.
get turned off?
Didn't get turned off, I think. Okay.
Sorry about that interruption. So it's a similar thing for, this death that we're all going to be facing. And unless you've had a near-death experience, it's a one-off experience. And so by doing death contemplation, it's like you get to practice, just like the ambulance drivers who, see horrific scenes over and over again. If we do a death contemplation, then we're sort of, in a way, sort of practicing the dying process, so that when our actual death is occurring, we're not so freaked out. We're able to be peaceful and calm and not have it be such a scary experience. So that's one reason for group one. And I think the other reason is, if we don't deny, if we're not in denial about this fact that we're all going to die, then by bringing it to mind and being aware, this can happen, and who knows when. You could be in a motor vehicle accident today, and this could be the last day of your life. Or you could get a cancer diagnosis and just have a few months to live, or have a heart attack and then that'd be a quite immediate death. So, death is inevitable. What we just don't know is the timing of it. And so if we are bringing to mind that this is an inevitable part of living, is that we're going to die, then and we don't know when, it could be any time, then that's going to help us live our life, like not fritter away our life, to say, Is what I'm doing right now important? Is it helping me towards whatever my goals are? Or am I just wasting my time? Am I going to regret it on my deathbed? For the middle group, because there's a belief now in rebirth, then there's going to be the concern to, am I living a wholesome life? Do I have some unwholesome qualities that I need to look at and to transform? Yeah. And then for the third group, the Buddha talks about, imagining that your hair's on fire. And so if you're wanting to go for full awakening so that you get off this round of samsara and you don't know when your death could be, then you've really, need to be motivated to practice wholeheartedly now, because you don't know how much time you have. So anyway, when I thought about death contemplation, those are the sort of three sort of main groups I thought about. So does anybody feel they lie outside of that and want to share a fourth a fourth group? Or does everybody feel included? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands waving. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to read 2 suttas where the Buddha is discussing death contemplation. The first sutta, he's talking about ways that we can die. They may sound a little bit archaic or to us because they're from the time of the Buddha. And then the next sutta is sort of encouraging us to not waste our time, to realize that death could happen at any time, and so we need to do what's important now. So the first sutta, this is from the Anguttara Nikaya, the numbered sayings. And if you don't have the hardcover books, if you go to Sutta Central, that you can read all the Buddha's works there. Bhante Sujato put them up. So this is from the Book of Eights, and it's number 74. Forgot to get my glasses, so I'll be able to read this okay. So it's called Mindfulness of Death. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Nadika in the brick hall. There, the Blessed One addressed the meditators. Meditators, Venerable Sir, those meditators replied. The Blessed One said this: Meditators, mindfulness of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as its consummation. And how is this so? Here, bhikkhus, here meditators, when day has receded and night has approached, a meditator reflects thus: I could die on account of many causes. A snake might bite me, or a scorpion or centipede might sting me, or I might thereby die. That would be an obstacle for me. I might stumble and fall down, or my food might disagree with me, or my bile might become agitated, or my phlegm might become agitated, or sharp winds in me might become agitated, or people might attack me, or wild spirits might attack me, and I might die. That would be an obstacle for me. This meditator should reflect thus: do I have any bad, unwholesome qualities that have not been abandoned, which might be an obstacle for me if I were to die tonight? If upon review, the meditator knows I have bad, unwholesome qualities that have not been abandoned, which might become an obstacle for me if I were to die tonight. Then they would put forth extraordinary desire, effort, zeal, enthusiasm, indefatigability, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to abandon those unwholesome qualities. Just as one whose clothes or head had caught fire would put forth extraordinary desire, effort, zeal, enthusiasm, indefatigability, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to extinguish the fire on their clothes or head, so that meditator should put forth extraordinary desire, effort, zeal, enthusiasm, indefatigability, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to abandon those bad, unwholesome qualities. But if, upon review, the meditator knows, I do not have any bad, unwholesome qualities that have not been abandoned, which might become an obstacle for me if I were to die tonight, then they should dwell in that same rapture and joy, training day and night in wholesome qualities. So what the Buddha is referring to here is if we don't have any unwholesome qualities and there's no remorse, and then happiness or joy just sort of naturally arises within us. The next sutta is in the Book of Sixes, and it's number 20. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Nadika in the brick hall. There, the Blessed One addressed the meditators. Meditators, mindfulness of death, when cultivated and developed, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in full awakening, having full awakening as its consummation. And how is this so? Here, meditators, when day has receded and night has approached, a meditator reflects thus. Whoops.
What's the next one?
Is the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. This one's a repeat of what we just know. Okay, it's the one before. My apologies. It's number 19. Book of Sixes, number 19. So, meditators, mindfulness of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in full awakening, with full awakening as its consummation. But do you, meditators, develop mindfulness of death? When this was said, one meditator said to the Blessed One, Bhante, I develop mindfulness of death. But how, meditator, do you develop mindfulness of death? Here, Bhante, I think thus, may I live just a night and day so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. I could then accomplish much. It is in this way that I develop mindfulness of death. And then the Buddha goes on to hear other meditators saying how they're doing their death contemplation, and each one is getting shorter and shorter. So the first person is saying that they're thinking, I might just live one day and one night. And then each person sort of gets shorter and shorter. And now I'll just skip ahead to the two that gave the shortest contemplations. Still another meditator said to the Blessed One, I too, Bhante, develop mindfulness of death. But how, meditator, do you develop mindfulness of death? Here, Bhante, I think, may I live just the length of time it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful of food, so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. I could then accomplish much. It is in this way that I develop mindfulness of death. Still another meditator said to the Blessed One, I too, Bhante, develop mindfulness of death. But how, meditator, do you develop mindfulness of death? Here, Bhante, I think, may I live just the length of time it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. I could then accomplish much. It is in this way that I develop mindfulness of death. When this was said, the Blessed One said to those meditators, the meditator who develops mindfulness of death thus, may I live just a night and day so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. And the one who develops mindfulness of death thus, may I live just a day so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. Or the one who says, may I live just the length of time it takes to eat a single alms meal so I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. Or may I just live the length of time it takes to chew and swallow 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food so I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. And the Buddha says, these are the meditators who dwell heedlessly. They develop mindfulness of death sluggishly for the destruction of the taints. But the meditator who develops mindfulness of death, may I live just the length of time it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful of food, so I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. I could then accomplish much. And the one who develops mindfulness of death thus, may I live just the length of time it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teachings. I could then accomplish much. These are called meditators who dwell heedfully. They develop mindfulness of death keenly for the destruction of the taints. Therefore, meditators, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell heedfully. We will develop mindfulness of death keenly for the destruction of the taints. Thus should you train yourselves. Okay, so we're now going to listen to or follow a guided meditation by Ayya Medhanandi. She's the nun at Sakisarani in Perth, Ontario, where Ayya Himsa trained for the first two parts of her training as a nun. She'll get to a point where she says, open your eyes. So ignore that. That'll just be my cue to turn off the recording, and then we'll just continue to sit for another 10 or 15 minutes. So if you just want to get yourself comfortable and ready for meditation.
Focus on the body. Scan your body from the head down the top of your face, your chest, pelvic area, down your legs to the bottom of your feet. Feel yourself sinking into the present moment. Allow all thoughts to fall away from you. Thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future, thoughts of the present. Noticing the mood of the mind, whether it's relaxed or tense. Ease into the moment. Feel your breath pulsing quickly or slowly. Feel that rhythm. Feel your life force slowly weakening. And still you can notice the breathing and stay with it. Stay very, very present. Notice the hardness of your bones against the floor or the chair. Notice the heaviness of the body. Just feel the present moment. Giving yourself completely to it. Drawing together all the threads of your life in this moment. And letting each one go, strand by strand. Letting go all your wealth and worldly possession. All your achievements and honors, certificates, photographs, papers, books, projects, plans, strand by precious strand. Let go all your loved ones. Bring up their faces in your mind, one by one. Now this one, now that one. Each one holding it close, that lovely face could be let go one by one. Let go the memories of a life, childhood, youth, middle age, or more if you are older. Let them go. Each chapter, each story, every lingering momentum of those years. Let go the pain, the sorrows, every trauma. All the disappointments and surprises. All the twists and turns of a life well lived, fully lived, fully cherished, no matter what has passed. Strand by strand, they grow distant and fall away, and we breathe, sinking into the body, breath by breath. slowing down and stopping. Feel the earth element beginning to dissolve. Bones, tissues, membrane, cells flaking away, drying, withering, sinking. Feel that. Feel the water element also drying, diminishing. Slowly, blood congealing in your veins and arteries. The organs flowing, sputtering, weakening, giving in, surrendering. The earth element fading into the earth element. The water element rejoining the water element. The heat in the body escaping, evaporating, joining the heat fire element. Body growing cold, limp, listless, lifeless, useless, just like a log of wood. Only the air element remaining, and consciousness, the mind element. And now, with ever so slight and hissing, ringing sound, the air element issuing forth back into the atmosphere, leaving us behind, whispering its way out, up, as we become more eternal, desiccated, still, colorless, pale, fading away, hearing consciousness remain. All the cavities in the body, empty of air and wind, the lungs, the spaces between the joints, disappearing, dissolving. Our whole life slipping away in time and space, just hearing consciousness remain for a moment, knowing the breath has ended, hearing to fade, and the heart very calm, peaceful, and breathe. Completely aware and mindful of the next point of consciousness beyond that. And it be pure, untainted, wholesome, radiant, welcoming, ripening from a life well lived, sweet like the fruit ready to drop, mature from its tree, the ebbing away of the life force, completion, and in death, natural, breath of the wind. There is a slowly taking new life, reborn into this moment, restored, gently resuscitated. Feel the body, feel the life force return. Feel the bones reorganizing themselves. The blood beginning to flow and flow. Feel the heart, feel the lungs, all the systems and organs reviving. Feel the heat in the arms and legs and torso. Feel the cheeks warming and the light around us. Feel the mind awake, alert, fully present, and the breath strong, deep. The energy of the breath radiates throughout the body. The eyelids growing lighter, the heart open, receptive, Yeah. Fully awake and conscious, opening the arms gently.
Okay, so we can open it up for discussion time. Yes, Sujata.
Good morning, Ayya, everyone.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, just a minute.
Oh,
Can you hear me now? I see people nodding yes.
yeah, it's
Zoom.
just wait a minute. It's on the wrong thing here.
Okay.
Speaker is Samsung, so I'm looking for it.
Same as system will be for the computer, I think.
Yeah.
HDMI audio probably.
Yeah, try that. HDMI, do that.
Okay, see if it works now.
Okay.
It's working.
It sound okay.
Problem was on our end.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate the people who nodded on Zoom saying, yes, we can hear you. Anyway, good morning, everyone. And I'm while I was doing the meditation, I was thinking about death in terms of there's sort of ways that people do die, and I have the impression that the process is fairly similar for most people, although they don't go through all of the aspects that are possible with death, like death rattle and things like that. And so I was just wondering, from sort of more of a medical view, do you have any knowledge of that process of dying?
I did read a book by a physician who talked about, he went through all the different organ systems, like depending which one was most, failing in you. And I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name of that book. But yeah, it could be, different experiences. And then, of course, there's dying in your sleep. So there's no consciousness of it. Yes, so it can be a very different experience. But maybe if you Google around, you can find a book that talks about sort of like the medical aspect.
Yeah, just that I think that because I've heard that hearing is the last thing to really go.
Mm-hmm.
And that it can begin from where, I had a brother in hospice care at one time, and I understood from a family member that it was evident he was in the death process because somehow it began from the feet up. I don't know what that meant, whether a change in color, a change in temperature, and I'm just curious because in my mind, that would be helpful for me in the meditation and in the preparation for death, some of the possibilities of what I would experience in the process, because often not knowing is scary, right? If there's some preparation or some understanding, it can calm the mind. I'd be able to calm myself.
Yeah. So is anybody here or on Zoom, are you aware of any of these books? Sarah? Oh, there we go. How We Die. I think that's the one. What's the name of the author?
Sherwin Newland.
Okay.
That might be the one that I read. Yeah.
I could lend it to you.
So I know a little bit about this, Sarah. How We Die is kind of a graphic overview of all the many options. But what you're asking for, I think there's another book that will be much more helpful.
And that is called The Beginner's Guide to the End. And it's a very new book, say less than 5 years. And it tells you all about the very regulated way that the body shuts down at death. And it's a very, very good book. It covers not only the physical process, but also things that people could or should think about in advance to make the lives of the people around them a little easier from an administrative point of view.
Like have a will. And what was the name again,
It's
please?
called the Beginner's Guide to the End.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's written by 2 people. The gentleman who is a palliative care doctor has a very interesting life story, and I believe he has a TED Talk. Anyway, there's lots of options there, but that's an incredibly solid, good start. I can recommend.
Okay.
There's another good book by Stephen Jenkinson. He's Canadian, actually. And there's a documentary called Grief Walker that sort of covers his work. He's done a lot of ton of work with people, helping people die and helping people come to peace with the fact that they are dying. And so he's written a book called Dying Well.
Okay.
And I mean, his work is really good. He's Canadian too. I said that already. But how you know about it? Yeah.
Stephen Jenkinson's book,
Yeah.
Die Wise,
Die Wise. Thank you.
and we
Thank you.
have it in the library of the Palliative Care Society.
Yeah.
That's you're welcome to
Yeah.
borrow. And BJ Miller and Shoshona. Yeah, that's a really, really good one. There's a 12-minute video by Dr. Catherine Mannix. She's a British physician. I think you can Google it. I can email it to you. Mannix, Catherine Mannix. She's coming to Canmore in October. I believe it will be open to the public October 19th and 20th. But there's a 12-minute video by her who can answer exactly that question and have put many people's mind at ease in terms of, oh, that's what happens. And it's very easing and comforting. Yeah.
I just wonder if it would be possible to have these suggestions compiled in an easy list for us to reference.
Yeah, I can re-listen. I can re-listen to this conversation and write them down and then put them when we post the video. I can have it written in the little blurb that's below the video.
I could do that as well, Sanghamitta. I sometimes don't think about recordings and going back. Okay, thanks.
I know that my father died 3 years before my mom, and my father died just like in his chair in where they lived. And I mean, as soon as he died, my mom, who was like sitting right next to him, goes, "Well, that wasn't so bad." And it just changed her life. She was like, and like almost the next sentence was like, "I wonder how I'll die," you know. And then she just seeing someone, because he died pretty well, you know. He did quite a bit of work. Like he had COPD, so he knew it was coming, and then this can be such a gift. So for 4 years, you know, he was losing capacity and he was grieving it, and then there was this change where he just really became at peace with it all, and then he started making amends for some things, and so he died, you know, very, very beautifully, very peacefully, and was such a gift to my mom. So it's a valid question, Sujata. Like if you do, this, I think this 12-minute, if you can put your mind at rest and take some of the mystery out of it and the fear. Yeah.
I kind of think it's exciting. Where am I gonna go?
There's a story.
Yeah, because it was interesting. The guided meditation took you to your death and then it took you into rebirth.
Sarah and I were talking yesterday, and there's a good friend of ours, a bhikkhuni, who was the senior nun where I just was in California. Her name's Ayya Bodhi, and she has a good friend, just what you're saying, Ronnie, who was with her mother when her mother died, and told Ayya Bodhi, like, again, it was quite a peaceful, and a surrendered passing, and the daughter was with the mom, and apparently right before the last couple of breaths, the mom opened her eyes and turned to her daughter and went, "Yippee!" So obviously she was seeing something, and yeah.
I kind of think that if we had that in our minds in the way we live, like that yippee, it's like what a better life we'd have. Well, can I yippee all the time? It's like it's really a fun idea. It's like,
There's a verse early on in the Dhammapada where the Buddha says, for those who realize everyone here must die, quarrels end. Yeah, if we hold, and I think this is some of what the Buddha is talking about, if we hold death in mind, we get our priorities much more clear, much more straight. What's important, what counts. And if you have the honor of being with someone who is dying wise, like Stephen Jenkinson is helping and coaching people, yeah, you have the honor of seeing that all of the trivial and all of the petty, it has the opportunity to just vanish into the background, and the things that are really important are so palpable. They're so available. That's what's there.
what would be neat is to see somebody who has this realization get up off that deathbed and start living. It's like that. I guess that's what I'm talking. It's like, why are we waiting?
Well, I think that's what the Buddha did under the Bodhi tree.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I just want to add, when you mentioned, Aya, about your father, sort of, taking a look at those regrets and working towards making amends or whatever you call it. I think a lot of the preparation towards our death is also settling those quarrels and disagreements. And I think that often leads to a more peaceful death.
And a more peaceful life.
That's exactly what was going through my head. Why
wait? Absolutely.
the stories we tell ourselves. That's why we wait. We just tell stories to ourselves. It's like,
When they also get very reinforced in the culture that we live in. Very.
Anything else before we close?
No, this was really cool. Thank you. Good reminder.
Yeah, David.
Oh,
Did anybody mention Pema Chodron's newest book? I think it's her latest book. I think it's entitled "How We Live Is How We Die."
Mm,
no.
It's exactly on what you were mentioning, Sanghamitta, about why wait.
Mhm.
If we are living our life wisely and well and peacefully, then that's how we're going to pass.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's right on point.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I didn't know about her new book. Okay, we're appropriately ending today with a Brahma Vihara of equanimity, Upekkha.
I'm going to ask if you could dedicate the minute to our
Yes.
to my friend Angie that knows.
Okay. So we want to dedicate the merits of our practice today to Marilyn's friend Angie, who just passed, and then also for Sujata, because you're having your surgery on Monday, is it? Yes, so best wishes for your surgery. So meditation on equanimity. So bring to mind a neutral person, somebody you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards, and direct these phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now bring to mind someone who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now think of a friend, and if the previous person was a friend, just bring to mind another friend and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now bring to mind a difficult person, someone you have a difficult relationship with, and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you too, as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now we send the phrases to ourselves. I am the owner of my karma. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not my wishes or hopes. I care for myself, and I am determined to follow the path of peace, the Noble Eightfold Path. I wish myself happiness, and I am determined to make skillful choices. All beings are owners of their karma. The happiness and unhappiness of all beings depends upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. I care for all beings as suffering beings, but I cannot keep them from suffering. I wish all beings true happiness, but I cannot make their choices for them. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed.
Angie,
Sujata, yes,
Rose, Harry,
Liz, Blair,
Janice,
Simon.
Scott, Glenn.
May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.